Good evening, I'm Riley O'Carroll, and today we'll be diving into the world of the brush-tailed rock wallabies. Our reporter Clark Kent has more. The brush-tailed rock wallaby, on the verge of extinction. Residing in the beautiful Budjong and Kangaroo Valley regions, the wallabies' numbers have dwindled. 1871 saw the introduction of foxes. This, along with other threats like hunting and deforestation, saw a rapid decline in the species' numbers. Over the years, their species has declined to dangerously low numbers. I'm now joined by Friends of the Rock Wallabies member, Sophie Holmes, as she talks to us about how her group is on the forefront of saving the brush-tailed rock wallaby. Sophie?
Thanks, Clark. It's really good to be here.
I have a few questions regarding the impact and survival of the brush-tailed rock wallabies. First question, how did their numbers dwindle so fast, and how many individuals are there?
Yes, there are about 20 individuals left on the south coast. In the mid to late 1800s, they were hunted for their fur, and an enormous number were killed, in fact over 500,000. This time also saw the introduction of the European fox, which continues to this day to be the biggest predator of our beautiful little wallabies. These two factors decrease their population to a point where it's extremely hard to recover because the adults can only produce and nurture so many young a year, and as more wallabies are killed, they're not getting to their reproductive age, which is why their numbers have become so low and have stayed so low despite our efforts.
Lastly, what is the rock wallaby's biggest threat?
Many things pose threats to our wallabies, and of course the biggest ongoing threat is the predation from the foxes, wild cats and wild dogs. But interestingly, more and more localized threats are starting to pop up. For example, there's a recent spike in the use of motorbikes in the area. And this, along with the compounding factors like the drought, the fires, loss of habitat, and competition and predation from those introduced species, further exacerbates the stress that our wallabies are under.
I'm joined now by a local motorcyclist who uses this area for riding. Hamish, how are you?
Good, thanks Riley, good to be here.
Alright, first question. What attracts you to ride in this area?
I guess it's the first major bushland west of Nowra, and it's relatively secluded. The lay of the land is perfect. It's somewhat flat, and due to the fires it's less dense, so it's easy to make tracks.
Are you aware that this area is a Crown's Land Reserve, and that activities like motorbike riding are banned?
No, I wasn't aware of that. I thought this was just a normal bushland and that activities like that were permitted.
What about the sign you cross that specifically says motorbike riding is banned? Then the summer of 2020 rolled around. This was known as the Black Summer. This was the nation's worst recorded fire season. 46 million acres of bushland burnt. Approximately 80% of the Shoalhaven's landmass was affected, including the habitat of the wallabies. Budjong and the surrounding areas had their bush completely reduced. Water had been evaporated, feed destroyed, majority of the animals in the area killed, but somehow none of the brush-tailed rock wallabies perished. But the hardships caused by the fire are not over. I'm now joined by Ryan Smith from the National Parks and Wildlife Services, who has more on how the fires have affected the brush-tailed rock wallabies. How drastically has the fire affected the rock wallabies? And how will it continue to do so?
Fortunately, during and after the fires, we didn't lose any wallabies, which was amazing. But the fire has had a more hidden toll on the wallabies. The fire has affected their levels of stress, which is extremely bad as the wallabies are vulnerable to dying and stress-related illnesses like stomach ulcers. The fire has had a huge impact on their environment, which has disturbed their breeding patterns and cycles, which is really bad considering there are only around 20 individuals left. And of course, they're eating less. This all compounds to their stress, which is obviously something we want to keep down.
But thankfully we're starting to see some positive change in the bushland, but the fight to keep these Aussie battlers alive continues. Back to you, Riley. I'm afraid that's all we have time for today, but stay tuned for tomorrow's broadcast. But for now, goodbye.